All right, questions on everybody's mind. I know on ours specifically about our athletes coming back after this quarantine time with COVID. They're getting back in. Some are getting activity, some aren't yet. We wanted to really bring a great guest in here to talk about what you should do. Talk about a checklist as parents, athletes, and coaches, what you want to see, what you want to ask your coaches going on, and as coaches, just making sure you're covering all bases. So make sure you've already subscribed, you're set up, and get ready for this next episode of the Strength of America podcast.
Strength of America podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back. We've got a special guest with us, Professor Craig Nolan here. He's with Mesa Community College, a professor of exercise science. I also know him from our time with the NSCA, the National Strength and Conditioning Association. He's our state director here for Arizona. So I want to welcome in. Appreciate you coming in. And
it's a pleasure to be here, Bob.
Helping us with these things. We've got a lot going on with these kids and athletes, and I know it's a concern of yours as well.
Yeah.
Just kind of background a little bit with yourself and things you're doing at Mesa Community College. I know you haven't been doing a lot the last few months, you said.
No.
They've shut you down.
Yeah, I haven't been on campus since roughly March. They shut the school down, so we've been doing everything online. I have been at Mesa Community College for roughly 14 years as a full-time faculty member, exercise science. We have an exercise science program there as well as a physical education program.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that. We have a great human performance lab as well. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to use it, but we can do body fat testing. We do VO2 testing, anaerobic testing. So I'm looking forward to trying to get back into that lab so we can utilize some of that equipment.
Yeah, and I love the lab part that you've got in there because so much, it's not just classroom things. Here he's really, what he does a lot, which is fantastic. Bobby and I went out last year and actually worked with some of the kids. And somebody working with these kids are potential personal trainers, sports coaches, athletic trainers, nursing, and there's a wide variety these kids are going into. So I think it's so essential, this part of that program. I'm glad they're getting more into this field because as we know, a lot of these kids, when you finish up school, they don't have any practical experience, anything going on, and that's one of the biggest things we've talked with Dr. Messer over there as well, and you guys, is that, man, getting these kids out in the field and learning more as they go along. Some of them just to see, is this a field I want to go into? I didn't know that was part, or man, this is cool, I like this part of it, and then they shift gears. So that's great. So
I believe in hands-on.
Yeah.
When I earned my exercise science degree, we never went into a gym once, and I thought, hey, if I'm going to be a professor, we're going to change that.
Yeah.
We need to teach people how to do practical stuff. So
that's awesome. That's where it's at. Like when we do our coaches class, the same thing. I'm not much going to sit down. Let's all get up. Let's move. Let's feel what you're expecting your athletes to do, so you know how to make adjustments. So that's fantastic.
Yep.
Well, part of that going in now, we know, looking at past off-season sports with basketball and the NFL and all, they've had those time frames, whether they were negotiation breaks or whatever, but we saw a big increase in injuries when those athletes came back in as well. And you get a combination of, you've got coaches that mean well, want to do some great things, want to help, but then also are excited to get them back in there and let's go. They're kids, they'll adapt, they'll be okay. But we know that's not the case because we see these pros, even at that level, with that level of training and things going into it, still doing too much too quickly. They're overloading joints and things are tearing that never should have happened.
Exactly. My biggest message to my students would be, if you're working with clients that you haven't worked with or athletes you haven't worked with in a while, one of the main things I would do is extend a warm-up. If you're working with them if they haven't been working out with them a while, do an extended warm-up from 10 to 20 minutes.
Perfect.
That would be, and then, don't throw everything at them right off the bat. Maybe start out with a moderate load, whether that's sprinting, whether that's weights, whatever, just gradually get back into it.
Yeah. And I think that's key. That's one of the things I think Bobby found. Unfortunately, I know you guys miss Bobby. He's not here today. Had some tire issues coming out here. But, what he's done, he did that same thing and said, look, let's take some of the extra stuff that we normally would do, and let's just really go after the basics and make it well. And again, the often overlooked part is the warm-ups, which are mobility and really preparing the body for the activity. Doesn't mean I'm going to do a few minutes on the treadmill and then get under a bench press and load it up and go crazy. It's do that specific activity for what you're trying to get done. So if it's some speed work or agility or power things, those are things you do loaded with the body, smaller things. Don't just throw them on a box. Get all those things progressed, I think, are key. And you're going to find a lot of these kids that haven't done much for a while. And these kids, it can be our 10, 13-year-olds or our college kids that we're working with. That we know they haven't done the same thing that they would have done over the last 6 months time frame. It just is not going to happen. Some of them had no access to the weight room, or some are doing stuff out of their house, and it's all been modified. You're not going to do the same thing by yourself as you would with your teammates. And then you get your teammates in, and that's what I'm worried about, is now they're all raring to go, and let's keep pushing each other to go, and somebody's doing something stupid. So, the mobility, I think that's a great part. That warm-up, have that extended period getting in there so they can really concentrate on it. Like high knees, we've all seen them do some great mechanics and some pretty terrible wasting times. You might as well run laps. So let's work on those things, which are running mechanics, your technique, where's your body posture, where do your arms go, your legs, and let's really focus on getting that ingrained in till we get a big thing. How about the weight room and these kids coming back? Who they'll think, okay, last time I was here, I benched 2.25 for 10.
Exactly. Well, one of my first things I would tell my students to tell their clients would be to ask and find out, what have you been doing? Have you been doing anything? Everybody likes to say, well, I'll do some at-home workouts, and that doesn't always go as planned. So first thing I would say is, hey, find out what they've been doing. Now, maybe if they've been doing some push-ups, some body weight squats, some lunges, maybe we don't have to go back to point one. But and if they have been doing some stuff, I would still go back a little bit on the weight and get them back into it. The muscles, it's called that muscle memory for a reason. They'll remember that. It's like getting back on a bike after not riding it for a while. You're not going to fall off, but don't go out there and go 20 miles. Just take it easy. Get back into it slowly would be my biggest.
And those kids that have been doing the weight and think they're okay, their mechanics probably isn't the same because nobody's watching how they're doing it, or they don't have that mirror to see how they're squatting or what's going on. So they don't feel what's happening with their knee and their hip position. So it's great, get them back them down to a little bit with them, maybe a third of what they think.
Probably,
And then, kind of work. Because, if you end up doing an extra set or two to figure out their weight, big deal. That's okay. But if you guess wrong, somebody gets hurt, now what? Now they're out for a while. Then you're at risk there. And I think that's where I think a lot of times the coaches have to really take a look at and take it personal, that nobody should get hurt in their weight room and their stuff going on. If they're doing their job, that should be happening. So, hey, take that extra time going into it, because nobody's season is going to be expected to be what it was last year or anything going on. Right now, let's get them prepared. Let's get them in. Some of you may not even have a season, so you can treat it as your off season to get ready going in. That's fine.
There you go.
But let's take a look at some basics going into it. So we talk load. How about kind of volume or sets? If they're starting out.
Like I said, I would. Depending on the goal of the person, if it's hypertrophy, strength, we know what those ranges are. I would go on the low end of those ranges. So if your sets was 2 to 6, maybe start at 2 to 3. Your repetitions being the same. Stay at a moderate repetition range. So like I said, I would just scale everything back a little bit. You'll be really surprised how fast you get back into it, unless you literally did nothing for the last 4 months.
Right.
So you will get back into it, but like you had mentioned earlier, caution on the side of error. Always go a little bit lighter. You're feeling better. We add the loads, we increase the reps, we increase the sets. Yeah,
perfect. So I think Bobby looked at kind of a 4 to 6 week progression, kind of building in over a summertime, getting some of those kids back in. And he said, he was pleasantly surprised that within 3 to 4 weeks, the kids had mechanics down. They had loads back up, about 90% what they were before they left. And so things came back pretty quickly, which is great. But if you don't plan on that either, it's much easier to say, okay, great, we can speed it up to the next point, because now we're at that point A. But you've got to know where those levels are and when to adjust. And I think that's important. Is patience isn't easy for any of us. It's not for me. But definitely with these kids, they want to load and get going, and they want to be strong and keep each other going. So that's an important part. How about recovery with things like food and sleeping? I mean, we know these kids figure, well, I've been recovering for 4 months. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, I always find that the recovery aspect seems to be the hardest for young athletes to follow. Yeah. It's the thinking that I need to, more is better. Yeah. And that's not true, because we know recovery is part of the process of building muscle. So, I mean, we probably haven't been eating as well over this time because we've been at home. You know, I would definitely be cognizant of what our nutritional habits are. And when it comes to the recovery, I would add more recovery days right now. I would add an additional day in there to make sure, see how the body feels, because you're probably going to be experiencing a lot more of that delayed onset muscle soreness. Yeah. So give your body time to acclimate. That's your body telling you it needs to recover, and it's time to build.
Yeah. And those that aren't kind of following that too much, you know, the other part of that is figuring out your volumes, of not doing too many sets if you want to be able to move the next couple of days afterwards. Exactly. It's important, because if you can't move and can't do anything too well because you're too sore, how are you going to get the workout that was planned to get you back into shape? So, you know, starting with those slower things, and you find after a couple of weeks, you know, everybody's adapting faster, boom, then go up, increase your volume and pick that up. But much better to do that than crank it out and sore and you can't move.
Exactly. And it's hard to say what the time range is, because people acclimate differently. Sure. So, you know, I would think most athletes within a 4 to 6 week period after coming back should probably be pretty darn close to where they were. Where they were at, unless they were, like I said, just completely sedentary. Yeah. So I would adhere to those values, and you know, you're less likely to get injured.
Yeah.
So
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
How about things like foam rolling, doing stuff like that? Are those things one that you kind of fall into? Some are really good, I think it's great, some not.
Yeah, I definitely, especially if we're not in the gym as much. Those would definitely be things that we could do at home, maybe more stretching, foam rolling more often. There's research out there that shows foam rolling helps to decrease soreness. You know, obviously we know the benefits of flexibility, increased range of motion. So those types of things on the days that you're not working out, or the days maybe you really want to be training with weights or plyos or running, and you know you shouldn't, let's do some more of that stuff. Yeah. You know, the prehabilitation stuff that a lot of times that you have always preached in your clinics and whatnot. So I'm a huge advocate of that, because you could literally foam roll and stretch every day.
Oh yeah.
If you're doing it, you know, wisely. Sure. So if you feel like, hey, I need to do something, I really need to do something today, foam roll, stretch, some body weight stuff, but give the body time to rest, and so it's ready to come back when it needs to work out.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think, and one of the things that, you know, kind of going back to is building in and preparing them. Bobby actually took a look. We talked about this. It was really his first week back. Mm-hmm. They didn't touch the weight room at all that week. It was really body weight stuff that he did, jumping, landing mechanics, getting him, you know, 2 legs to 1 leg, getting basic movements down again, because the kids haven't been doing pickup basketball. They haven't been doing any of the other things going into it. So you realize, you know, our use it or lose it really applies. You don't realize how much more. And if that athlete now maybe is a little bit heavier or off, and they don't have the same muscle mass, they're not going to move the same way either. So that first week of just thinking, take your time, let's get some mechanics in. The extended warm-up, I think, is great. Mm-hmm. Making sure we get into some jump mechanics and landing and rotating and landing, and, you know, all the things that we do in our ACL stuff. I think those are really key to help them prepare when you get ready. Just like basic squats, where's the body at? Do some lunge positioning things, doing that. Not going right into hill sprints. Yeah. You know, find things that they can do. Also keep in mind, if they haven't run in a while, don't put them out on a 6-mile run right away either. Yeah. Because then you're going to have shin splints, or you got something else, or a lot of suicides up and down the court, and you wonder why their shins hurt so bad they can't move. So, you know, understand that process of what you're trying to do. I know you're excited to get them back in, but you have to take the time in the process. You don't want to be the ones that they're talking about, that their kids were hurt because they came to you. They came back too quick and did anything else.
Definitely.
COVID's a whole nother thing. We've got our own opinions on some of those things, and who does what and what. But I promised Bobby I wouldn't get too into the politics or anything, so I'll be careful. But, taking care of yourself and what you do. I mean, it's washing hands, not touching your face, do the basics. You make sure your gym is set up for it, ready to go. They've got protocols already for it. You've got good cleaning materials and things are out there. Helping kids understand to wipe down and things after each other will help transition and keep things go a little faster, make them a part of it, just like pride in their weight room or anything else. The more you can help your teammates stay healthy, you got your workout partner that can help you push better, and you guys all become a better team altogether as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that. There was a study that came out recently that people that are overweight or obese, I think it was mostly obese, would not respond as well to recovery if they got the COVID-19 virus. Sure. So gyms being shut down and all that stuff is counterproductive to what we're trying to accomplish here. Yeah. So that's even more reason why we need to stay active, need to get these gyms open, need to get these schools open so kids can be active and start getting back into the swing of things, because overweight and obesity is a huge problem. And when we're sitting around at home all day, I see it with my own kids.
Sure.
They're less active.
Yeah.
They're less active, and we need them to be more active.
And when you're not active, you tend to reach for the thing that's more the comfort food.
Absolutely.
That's not going to do anything good for you either at the same time. So you got to kind of find that balance. That's awesome. We also have, he was good enough to bring in one of the articles that the NSCA just published that I will make sure we get put into it. But they've got a checklist and guidelines for you guys, which is great, which is basically COVID-19 return to training. So I'm going to put this in and we'll attach it to the show notes for you as well so you can have it. But great read, good stuff, basic. It's not too intense on things going on. It really cuts it down into some basic things on what you need to do and look for, and I think that's important. NSCA does a great job in putting some things together, and I want to thank you for coming out and doing that.
It's my pleasure. It's always
Are there some ways or things to contact you? Or put
I can be contacted. Like I said, if you're interested in going into this field, exercise science at Mesa Community College. I also teach part-time at Bryan University, and they have a program there as well. Right. I'm the NSCA Arizona State Director. So I'm a huge believer in these organizations and getting involved and being a part of this stuff. So if you'd like to get a hold of me, got any questions, feel free to contact me at craig.nolan@mesacc.edu. At craig.nolan@mesacc.edu.
Perfect. I'll have that down there. You can click and make it easy too to get set up. And that's where, again, you can get involved in the program. You're going to send your student kids up to college, getting in the program to do it. You definitely want to seek people like Professor Nolan here, because he really believes in the hands-on learning. And these kids really, they get after it. They learn so much by doing it. And then they try and set up programs to help kids get out and learn and get experience, practical internships as well. And they get even more of on-the-field training and get a better idea of what's going on. It's a little different than a book. So appreciate you guys all there doing what you can to keep these kids safe, keep them going, you coaches, parents, questions, hopefully give you a few things to ask and go through it. But you can always message or email me as well. We'll get all the information there. You can get a hold of us at any of these, whether it's Instagram, wherever you're seeing it. And we'll be glad to help. It's better to ask beforehand than after somebody gets hurt.
Absolutely. Stay safe, folks.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot.